Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here with my week of reading wrap-up. This is where I talk about the books that I read this last week, what I'm currently reading, and potentially could read next week based on my mood. First off, I need to welcome a ton of new people. Thank you so much if you're new. Of course, thank you if you've been around for a while. You know that I always love you all. But I wanted to specifically welcome anyone who's come over from Doris from All the Books. She did a fantastic little mid-month book bash kind of bingo that she did last week, and she featured the channel as one of the bingo options, and because it was Hardcover Hearts, Valentine's Day. So thank you, Doris, for that, and welcome anyone who joined from that aspect. And then, as if that wasn't enough, Eric Carl Anderson from The Lonesome Reader, an amazing channel. He shouted out my video that I put out last week, which was finally my picks and favorites of 2020. I needed a little bit of time to kind of process and articulate what I loved about it and just kind of let the book sit for a bit and marinate. And so I was finally able to get those two videos up, and he picked them and featured them on his channel. So if you are here from either of those channels, please consider yourself welcomed. I have three other things to make mention of. The first is I've revived my blog. I had been really ignoring that. And so I decided to just start fresh. So there's a brand new blog. It's at hardcoverhearts.com. And there I'm blogging, but I also have a poll from both my Instagram and this channel, BookTube channel feed. So it's kind of like all of my bookish stuff in one place. And I hope you know that this is not my day job. This is just a hobby. So it'll be updated when I can. So that's I try to do at least one video every single week, and I'll try to also put at least one post up. And then I also had the esteemed delight of being asked to participate in a conversation on BBC Radio 4 in their book club with Tana French to discuss this book, The Witch Elm. I actually thought I was being punked when someone reached out to me from the BBC Radio 4 on Instagram and asked me to participate in the conversation. And I talk all about it in the blog, so I'm not going to take a bunch of time to talk about it here. If you're curious how it all came about and you'd like to listen to that episode, please go to the blog and all the details will be there. But just know that it was an absolute delight to participate, and to hear myself on BBC Radio 4 was, forget it, it was crazy. It was so surreal. And then the last thing I wanted to make mention of, so this is Black History Month in America. This is a kind of a big deal. And I always try to incorporate Black writers into my general reading, as well as just also works in translation, works by women. Those are kind of things that I enjoy and like to feature. And Nicole from Nicole is Here to Learn, she talked about at the end of her vlog, her most recent vlog, that February is supposed to be Black History Month. And so, but a lot of people read Black culture, books about Black culture, which it's different, right? So history is about understanding and really getting a sense of what has happened in the past to bring us to where we are now. And I just wanted to reflect on that a little bit because I did read a book and talked about it last week, and I'm going to do a specific review video of it. It was The Last Thing You Surrender by Leonard Pitts Jr. Now, this has been talked about in BookTube, but I want to revive it and say there is not a better book for Black History Month than that. If you read fiction, if you're maybe averse a little bit to nonfiction, that book is outstanding because he is a journalist. He comes with a journalist sensibility, and he puts the scope of the book in Jim Crow South, and then the implications of taking the Jim Crow type of laws and restrictions and how that plays out in war as soldiers and the Army and Navy were going out into the world. And also staying in how that changed the South itself as well. Outstanding book, incredibly propulsive. He does not spare any of his characters. I highly recommend it, and it would be great for Black History Month. And you still have time if you would like to get to it and read it. Okay, so that's all of like my precursors. Let's jump into the books because I read a few this week. The first I want to talk about is for the Invisible Cities Project. I'll put links to the information to that project below. But it's basically a year-long project where the hosts are picking 3 countries every single month for people to read from. And you're supposed to read own voices, works and translation from that country, unless you already read the language. And so the 3 countries this month are Egypt, China, and Colombia. So for Egypt, I picked a book that I've always been curious about because I love family saga books. And this is number 1 of the Cairo Trilogy. This is The Palace Walk by Naguib Mahfouz. This is a very, very long book. I did this in audio, and even in audio, it was very, very long. We are dealing with the day-to-day life of a patriarch and his many children and his wife in their home. It's a very cloistered home. The women and the girls are not allowed to leave or even be seen. And yet he and his sons lead very different lives from what they're supposed to be living based on the rules that he sets in the home. The father is, ultra conservative, patriarchal, iron-fisted, and this is at a time when it's like around World War I, when the English have kind of taken over Egypt. So there's a battle between new forces and new things that are starting to come in, and modernity coming in with the English, and kind of the old rules of how things were supposed to be traditionally. So that's already interesting. But then you also have the tension between the 2 cultures. There were times when I really struggled because the male gaze is so overt in fetishizing the sight of women and women being out in public, and women, because their home is so cloistered. And it was just really, really hard to read. But I think that's the point. And I think the author did a great job at humanizing the women, and also making that view seem so unpalpable and so conservative and so inhumane. And he really did a great job at playing with the hypocrisy of how these men were outside versus what they demanded inside. Really interesting book. If you like family sagas like I do, if you want to read more of the world, this would be a great one. I am going to continue on with the trilogy because I liked this one so much. Next up is I really wanted to read some romance books, and so I dived in this week. First up was Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, and this is volume 2. This is just a sweet, just really, really simply drawn. The art is very, very simple. Story of young love. We've got Charlie and Nick that are high school students in England. Charlie is out, and he is kind of nerdy, really book smart, very sweet young boy. And he becomes friends with Nick when they have to partner together in class. Nick is a rugby player and just kind of like the guy that everybody likes. Charlie starts to have feelings for Nick, and he's afraid that he has fallen for a straight boy. Maybe not. That was volume 1. In this volume, we really have Nick coming to terms with and trying to understand his sexuality. What does it mean? He knows he has feelings for Charlie, but does that mean he's gay? Is he bi? He's afraid to come out, and it's working through those issues that this volume deals with. It's lovely. I really like it, and I look forward to volume 3. Then I did an audiobook, and I've recognized that I do not like romance in audio form. I prefer to read it. This is Get a Life, Chloe Brown. This is Brown Sisters #1 by Talia Hibbert. Now, I wanted to read this because it has a lot of interesting aspects to it. Number one, it's a romance where our main character has a number of chronic illnesses. And so I really was curious to know how that was going to be portrayed, and if it was going to be portrayed in a way that victimizes her and allows this man to be like this shining knight that comes and saves her. And I really was hoping that was not the case. And I've heard good things about this, so I didn't think it was. And I was right, it was not. We have Chloe, who is rude, entitled. She comes from privilege and some money. This is set in London. And she has had an accident recently, and that has really shaken her and made her deal with her mortality. And she has decided that she's going to have to get a life because I think before she would have been kind of cocooning in her home with her family and not really just kind of dealing with her illness, but not living a life. And so she's created a list of things that she wants to do to help her get a life. And one of the things is to move out. So she moves into this apartment building where Red is the maintenance man, but he's also an artist. And he's living there and being the maintenance man so he can have cheap to free rent. They start to conflict when she has certain things that she needs done with her apartment, and he doesn't like her attitude. And hence the sparks fly. And she has him help her with some of the things on her list. And that's how their romance starts. And I just realized through doing this that it's a fine book. I think I would have liked it more if I had read it myself, as opposed to having someone read it to me. And so it just feels a little strange to have someone telling you the sex scenes and those romance scenes, as opposed to just reading it yourself. I'm by no means a prude, but there was something that I just didn't like about that experience. So note to self, no more audio romances. Next up, also what I think might have been an audio difficulty here. This is The Ghosts Are Family by Maisy Card. This is a book that is been akin to Homegoing in the sense that it is a family tree, and we have all the different branches, and it starts in Jamaica and then branches out into the United States. It started off, the reason I wanted to do this in audio is because there's a lot of dialect. And so if you get a great narrator, and the narrator's voice was fantastic, you really hear the rhythms and the sounds, and it really pulls you into the dialect in a way that is very hard if you don't hear that dialect very often. So I thought, oh, this is perfect. I remember this really unlocked A Brief History of 7 Killings by Marlon James for me, a book that I ended up loving, but reading it was very challenging. So I thought that this would help, but the structure of the book is so complex, and there's so many characters, and it all anchors to this family tree, and we're jumping forward and back in time, and so it really made it a very disjointed experience to feel grounded in. Now, each of the stories, once you're in those stories, were fantastic. But I think I missed something in those interconnections. This is ultimately the story of this family and the ghosts of slavery that kind of follow them throughout their futures and future generations. It was very good. I think though the book probably was better. Then I did not finish this, but I read enough of this to give it a very strong rating. This is Black Futures, edited by Kimberly Drew and Jenna Wortham. Now, Jenna Wortham, I don't think I mentioned before when I brought this up the week before, was that she is a New York Times culture critic who is part of the duo that does Still Processing podcast. And this curation that they've put together in this book is outstanding. It's very much about the potential futures for Black America, but it's all through music and art and photography and video and essays and poetry. Very well curated. It's almost like an art book, which led me to believe that I really need to own the book for myself. So when my library hold came up, I returned it because there are a lot of people waiting for this book, and I'm going to be seeking out a copy for myself. Then this was just probably the highlight of my reading week. If you're looking for a romance, all-encompassing, like rip your heart out, just get right in there and feel everything, this is the book for you. I did this in audio. This was from scratch, a memoir of love, Sicily, and found home. I did this in audio. This is from scratch, a memoir of love, Sicily, and finding home by Tembi Locke. Interestingly enough, Tembi Locke is the sister of one of my favorite mystery writers, Attica Locke. One of my favorite mystery books, standalone, is The Cutting Season by Attica Locke. I highly recommend it. Very, very good. But she's an actress, and we're going back in time to her early days, kind of out of college, in college and out of college, when she is in Florence, Italy, and she meets the man that she ends up marrying and starting a life with. She meets Sorrow. He is a cook in Florence, and you get all of the romance of Florence and that beauty of like the first love, your big real true love, and all of their challenges of how they're trying to make it work through distance and then starting their life together. His family in Sicily, and trying to build a bridge between her family from Houston's very big, boisterous family that's very much about Black empowerment and politics and progressiveness, and then this very small farm family in Italy, in Sicily, who were not educated and who actually were furious that he actually dated someone from a different village when he was younger. And so he has to get through and work through a way to have a relationship with his parents now that he is moved to the United States and starting a life with a Black American woman. There's so much here to love. There is so much joy and sadness, and about forgiveness and grief and family and time and space and food, so much food. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. The audio was exceptional. This is a great book. Okay, let's talk about what I'm currently reading. So as usual, you've seen this for a long time, and will continue to see it for a long time because we do this so slowly. This is Marcel Proust, In Search of Lost Time, Volume 2, In the Shadow of Young Girls in Flower. And this is translated by James Grieve. Reading this very slowly because Proust requires your full attention. So we read about 20 pages at a time. I'm reading this with Leo from A Little Book Life. I'll put a link to his channel below. Leo and I are also reading this monster. This is The Eighth Life. This is by Nino Haratischvili. And this is translated by Charlotte Collins and Ruth Martin. We are absolutely in love with this. This feels like one of those epic Russian novels where you get this massive sweep of a family saga. So just like with The Palace Walk, a family saga that we're looking at. This is during the time of Stalin. Stalin has just died, and we have a family that has been fractured and split off. I'm absolutely in love with this. The writing is so exquisite, painful, and very emotional, but it just flows. The editing, you would think for a book like this that it's bloated. I'm here to tell you the writing flows, and I love it. So far, we are halfway through and cannot wait to get back into this. And I just read in one sitting, like I don't want to put it down. Then I'm also doing a buddy read of Abigail. This is by Magda Szabo, translated by Len Rix. She's a Hungarian writer. And this is a story of a young girl who's sent to a convent because war is breaking out. Her father is a general and her mother died when she was young. And so she's trying to deal with convent life, but is also dealing with some knowledge about what's happening outside the convent in war and how that's starting to impact the families of the girls that are there with her in this very secluded, safe fortress. Beautiful writing. I'm still astounded. Natalie and I are both astounded at how much she can pack in and the brilliance at how she constructs her scenes. So good, so good. I'm also doing another buddy read. This is of someone called this the Dream Team. And so I'm very pleased to be included with their Dream Team. This is with Roz, Hannah, and Kim. I'll put links to all of their channels below. We're reading Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. And I'm telling you, after reading all of these really painful, emotionally wrenching stories about war, to read about this quiet little village of older women, it's the palate cleanser that I needed, and it's Elizabeth Gaskell, so you can't go wrong. So loving this so far. We're about to do our second check-in, and this is fantastic. And then I just got a special hold available from my library. This is Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. This just came out, and I'm only 6% in, so I can't talk too much about it, but I know that it's a transgender love story where one of the partners has decided to untransition. I don't know much about it. I'm still in the midst of trying to get my lay of the land here with the characters and everything. It's a little, I don't feel really well grounded yet. I'm only about 6% in, but the writing is interesting and the story is interesting. So I'm curious to see where this goes. So that is what I'm currently reading. So as you can see, I have a ton to keep me busy next week. I would love to know, have you read any of these and what do you think? That's it for me for now. As always, I like to end with reminding us that we're still in a global pandemic. So maintain safe social distance, please. Wear 2 masks now, cloth one on top, and wash your hands and don't touch your face. That's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll look forward to talking to you later. Bye.